Hi. According to LinkedIn, the top trends in 2024 for LinkedIn posts are authenticity and personalization. So to have an AI assistant like ChatGPT to create generic business phrases just doesn't cut it anymore. You need to provide value and you need to be yourself. So in this video, we're going to set up a system that creates a full fleshed out, high quality post and on a regular basis and automatically just by you putting in a rough idea. And it will also adhere to your personal writing style and tone and make every post authentic and super personalized. And lastly, it will never run out of things to write about because we're going to plug in all the news sources that contain the topics that you and your LinkedIn audience care about so that an AI assistant can take over and still keep your writing style. And what we are going to need for this are, first of all, a make.com account, then a OpenAI account so that we can use ChatGPT and the OpenAI API. And we're going to use Airtable to serve as our database. And finally, a Google account so that we can use Google Docs. So how will this work? So first of all, we are going to take Airtable as our database and we are going to set up 3 tables within there. The first one being your personal writing style profile, right? So we will throw in the common phrases that you use, the sentence structure, vocabulary, and a sample post so that we can refer to this later on. And you can even set up multiple profiles according to what you want the AI to adhere to, right? The next thing would be to have a personal ideas table, so where you will just throw in your ideas for a post, maybe in 1 to 2 sentences. And the last thing will be to have a sources table that you would want to have as a data source that the AI can use to pull the data from, like different RSS feeds, for example. And the next thing would be to have a conditional route in make.com, and the personal ideas table will take preference over the news sources. So if you have any ideas, it will take them. And then ChatGPT will pull this idea, match it, and rephrase it to your writing style and profile that you have chosen before, and then send it to LinkedIn and publish it right away. And you can schedule this, so this will happen every day, every week, whatever you want. And the next thing would be to have this substitutional route where you don't have any ideas, so that the AI will take all the RSS feeds that you have collected, take the most recent ones that you want, like maybe 1 or 2 per source, throw them into a Google Doc so that we have a raw data source, and then rephrase this or choose, first of all, the topics that you have told it to choose, and then it will just rephrase it and match it to your writing style just as before and send it to LinkedIn also and publish it right away. All right, now let's get started. So the first thing that you would want to do is to head over to airtable.com and take a look at this table and at this database. And I'm going to share this with you. If you are interested, just leave a comment below and I will send you the link to download this whole template. Now, if you don't know what Airtable is, just head over to airtable.com, and it's basically a fancy way of database, and it has actually the ideal sweet spot between the features of a real database and the usability of something like Google Sheets or Excel. And they do have a free plan, so no need to worry about this. And this will be totally sufficient for our purposes right now. So sign up or sign in. And if you're in, then just create a new database. I've called mine Automated LinkedIn Posts. And then you will be able to create different tables for different purposes. Now, the first thing we want to do is to create our profiles, right? Our writing profiles, so that the AI later on can relate or can refer to these profiles. And as you can see, let's just quickly go through this. So we have an ID, which is automatically generated. And here you can already see the benefits of something like Airtable, because there you have the feature that this will create a number automatically, so that it's an actual ID and that there are no duplicates or anything. So we have this column, then we have the post type, we have the tone, and then we have a couple of parameters that define you or your writing style, and that you can set up yourself. So in regards to the post type, I've set up a if you double click on this, and you can see the data type, and I've set up a single select for this. You can choose whatever you want, but it does make sense to set it up like this. And I've then chosen industry news, personal update, and opinion. And of course you can create whatever you want. And this is the post type. Then I have a tone. I also just differentiated between 3 types of tone, so informal, formal, and enthusiastic. And then we already have the common phrases. So let's say I have the personal update and informal, then this would be a common phrase, or these would be common phrases that I use. And you can of course, or have to adjust this to your personal writing style, and just list them out like this, and later on ChatGPT will be able to retrieve this. Sentence structure, same with this. This is just a long text data type, and just write out a couple of things. This is basically just a one-time setup, right? So that the AI can later on use this for the writing style. Then the vocabulary, what kind of vocabulary are you using when you are having when you're writing a personal update that is informal? Then I personally would use these types of terms, and then you can insert a couple of sample posts that you have created before, right? And if you don't, then just set some up so that there's just a fixed reference for the AI to go through later on. These are actual posts I've created in the past from LinkedIn or on LinkedIn. Just paste them in here, and that's already it. Then I have a last updated column, and the last 2 columns, we don't need to worry about them now. And then you can set up a couple of profiles, right? So if you have a personal update that's supposed to be enthusiastic, or you have industry news that you want to let your readers know on an informal basis, then you can set up this profile, and so on and so forth. Now the next thing is to set up the personal ideas table, right? So this is fairly simple, because you just throw in a personal idea, and this can be whatever you want. I've also created some pretty short and simple ones. So for instance, creation of a YouTube scraper that is able to find the most popular videos of other creators based on a search term, which will be a future video, by the way. And yeah, this is the idea of a post that I would want to publish on LinkedIn. And then you have the status, which is quite important, and we will see this later on in make.com. And this is a single select, so you will have to choose between one of those, obviously. And I've set up a draft status, a ready for processing status, and a processed status. And yeah, this is already it for the statuses. And now comes the interesting part, and why it's also nice to have something like Airtable, because this is just a reference to the writing style profiles table that we have set up before, right? So, and here you can see the ID of that profile that you are able to refer to back, right? So this is with the ID 1, and then ID 8 and ID 4. So I can choose what type of profile I want to use, or let the AI use later on, to publish or to formulate and phrase the post that is supposed to be about this topic, right? And everything that comes after this, as you can see in those parentheses from writing style analysis, comes or is automatically filled from Airtable in regards to the profile. So you have the post type, you have the tone, and the common phrase, and these are just basically the fields that we have already set up in this table, right? And why this is nice is because later on in make.com we will be able to refer to all of these fields and don't need to interact with any other table. So we will have this table, and we will be able to tell the AI that it's supposed to be with an informal tone, that these are the common phrases, and so on and so forth. And the final thing is the sources table. And this is just a really simple list of URLs that I've set up for my personal interest, or in reference to my personal interest. And these are like AI, tech, news channels and sites that also have an RSS feed. And this is just the RSS URL that I've put in. You can give it a name, and you can give it a type. And I've set, I think, 3 types. Yeah, I've set up 3 types: RSS feed, news site, and blog. So you can add any type that you want, but I'm concentrating or focusing on the RSS feeds now, because we will later on use the RSS feed module in Make, so that it's easier to set up. And feeds, RSS feeds in general, are quite nice because they give you a summarized text-only version of the info itself. And this is like the perfect format for the AI to interact with. And then we have a last checked data point if you would like to know this. All right, then the next thing would be to jump over to make.com. And if you don't know what Make is, then you should by now. And head over to make.com and create an account, log in or sign up. And you will be able to start a new scenario. And if you're in your dashboard, I'm already in my dashboard right now, then I will show you how we are going to start this. So head over to scenarios, and we're going to start with the first step. I'm going to move myself over here for now. And we're going to start with a Airtable, with the Airtable module, right? So this will give us the possibility to actually pull in all the data that we have just created in Airtable, right? So we're going to search the records. And I've already set up my connection. And if you don't have yet, then just add, and it will jump over to the connection type, and you will be able to enter your token or key, which is like the easiest way, and you will find all of this in the Airtable settings, where you can create your your API keys. All right, after you have done this, you can choose what kind of base you would want to use, and we are using the automated LinkedIn post. So this is basically, if you click on this, this is basically nothing else but this table, and then you have also access to all the, or this database, and then you have access to all the tables. So if we switch back, then you will see, if I click on tables, exactly those tables that we have created over there. Now we want to use the personal ideas table first, because this will be our first condition. Actually, if there are any personal ideas, then we would want to use them. Otherwise, jump back to the substitutional process. You can then sort and change the view, or choose the view. We only have one view, and you don't even need to choose this. So we can just leave this empty. And we're going to select all of those fields. We're not going to use or need any of them right now, but for now we're going to choose all of them. And now comes actually the fun part, because we will need to have a formula. And this formula is going to be the following. We have status in curly braces equals, and then ready for processing. And what this does is, if you remember, we have in our table, in our personal ideas table, we have different statuses, right? And this is why I told you this is going to be handy later, because if you have any ideas that you don't want to be considered within this creation, then you just give it a status. And of course, obviously, if you have already created this, then obviously you don't want to consider it again. Then you would set it to processed or done or whatever. So using this formula within Make, we enable it to just look for those posts or personal ideas that do have this status. And that's already it. So the next thing would be to limit this. So if you have like, I don't know, 100 ideas, then you could limit this to 10, 50, whatever you want. And that's already it. So I'm going to hit OK. And we're done with this. Now the next thing would be to set up a router, because remember, we only wanted to use the personal ideas, or the other way around, we only wanted to use the sources if there aren't any personal ideas, right? So we would set up the condition for this. So hit plus, then the flow control, and then we're going to use the router. And then we can set up different conditions based on what we want. Now, the first thing would be to head over here to this little icon and then set up a filter and then tell it to check for the number of bundles. Now, if you don't know what bundles are basically the output of what the module is going to generate. So if we just create, or if we just run this once, then you can see, and this is already a good first test, then you will see this little bubble here. And if you click on it, then you will see a ton of information. And this looks, if you are not familiar with Make, then this looks a little intimidating, but it's actually pretty easy, because if you take a look at the input, then you will see a couple of things that are familiar. First of all, this is the formula we entered, right? This is the limit we've set, and so on and so forth. And then if you see, then these are our table fields, right? These are the ones that we have set up ourselves. So this is the input that this module receives. And what's going to come out of this are basically these parameters. So you can get a ton of information, and here you can already see that this is giving us exactly what we wanted, because we have two bundles, right? Two collections of informations, if you will. And if you jump back into the personal ideas, then these are exactly those entries. And this is already a confirmation that this works, because this is the one we don't want, right? So in total there are 3, but we only want 2 because they have the right status. So this is what we want. Now we can use this output, or obviously want to use this output, in the next modules. So again, we're going to set up a filter and the router, and then we will say, if there aren't any bundles out of this previous module, then we want to use the new sources. And if there are any, so equal or greater than 1, then we would want to use the personal ideas table. So this is the logic we're dealing with, right? So let's take a look, because now you can see that there are a total number of bundles, and these are exactly those 2 we've just taken a look at, right? So this is the condition, or this is the field or the parameter we want to use to check up on. And then we say is not equal to, but is greater than or equal to, and you can even search this, and greater than or equal to, and then just hit in, just type 1 for the value. And this is already it. So this is the condition we want to check up on. Hit OK, and whatever comes after this is going to be under that condition. All right, now the next thing will already be the OpenAI ChatGPT module. So hit plus, then we're going to go for OpenAI, show more, and then we're going to create a completion using one of these models. So hit OK. And if you have already a connection, that's fine. If you don't, then just add it. And then you're going to use an API key again, which you will see here or get here within the settings of your OpenAI account. I've already done this, so it's all set. Then select the method, and we're going to create a chat completion. So this is correct. And then the model you would want to use, and we're going to use the GPT-4o model, which is like the best of the best, ideally. And we're going to take the system one, and the messages are going to be added right now, and the maximum tokens for testing I always hit 500 so that it doesn't exceed all of our credits in our OpenAI account. Now, as for the messages, this is the interesting part. We're going to add the first message. And how this works is basically a simulation of the conversation you have within ChatGPT, right? So if you're familiar with the UI, with the usual ChatGPT, then you know that it's just a back and forth conversation, and you can simulate this and then let this API step complete the conversation. This is why it's called create a chat completion, right? And the first thing would be to set a role. And the role would always start with a system prompt, and this can be fairly simple. And I've prepared one, and this is again pretty simple. You are a LinkedIn post creator and assistant. You generate these posts according to a specific post type and writing style, right? And then the post type for this post is, and the tone will be, and then you take in drafts of the user and flesh them out to full posts and adhere to a specific structure. All right, so we're going to take this first message, which is a system prompt. Whoops, jumped out of this. And then this will be the message content. Now, as for the variables we're going to use, because we do have one or two, let's just structure this a little nicer. Right now, the post type for this post, and now you see where we are using all this information from the tables, right? So if we have our personal ideas tables, and then within this table the reference to our profiles, and then again all the information we have from this other table. So this is where we will use our post type. So what kind of post is this going to be? And we will choose the post type, which is this one. Yes, and you can see if you hover over this, then you know right now we only have one previous module, but if there are a couple of, and especially if there are of the same type, so if you have a bunch of Airtables, then you see this pulsating icon, which is pretty nice to know what module you're dealing with or where all these parameters come from. So we have our post type, and this will be set up here. This is just a placeholder, and then the tone will be, and we select the tone variable. So this way, whatever you entered here, right, will be considered in regards to the specific post that you've chosen, right? So it will be dynamic. And this is already it for the system prompt. And the next thing will be to add a user prompt. And this is this one, also pretty straightforward. Use the following guidelines for the post. And then we have all of our variables, and then generate a LinkedIn post using the above information and guidelines. Only output the final LinkedIn content itself. Do not add any explanation or additional remarks, because you know sometimes it gives you this type of confirmation like, of course I can create a LinkedIn post for you, and then this is going to be within the final LinkedIn post, what we don't want. Now the message content will be this one. And I'm going to clean this up a little. Unfortunately, it always gets pasted like this, so you have to reorganize it afterwards again. And this will be this one. All right, now as for the common phrases, obviously we will refer back to our table. Common phrases, hit it, and it's going to be included right there. Sentence structure. Vocabulary is this one, and example post. And as for the final idea or the input, we are going to use the idea itself, which is this one. All right. Okay. Okay, and that's already it. Then we're done with this module. Hit OK and align this. All right, then let's test this again. We're going to save it, get this message here, and run it once and see what happens. Okay, so it is being generated. We do get 2 results, and we do get 2 results out of here. So let's take a look at this. Yes, exactly. This is the first and the second bundle. We've already taken a look at this, and then we're going to see what happened inside this module. So let's see. This is the first bundle as the input. And if we expand these little toggles, then you can see the messages. And now you see that the definition of those variables also worked, because here you can see this is the prompt you've just entered, right? You're a LinkedIn post creator and so on. And then the post type for this post is personal update. And if we take a look at our table, then this is this one, personal update and informal, right? And this is the tone. So it did catch the variable, and the second message is this one. So use the following guidelines for this post, common phrases, and then you get a couple of bullets, and these are those common phrases. So let's check this out. Personal update, informal, and then if we head over here as a general guideline, we're trying to mimic and so on. And these are exactly those as a general guideline we are trying to mimic and so on. Sentence structure while continuing to build an AI. Sentence structure while continuing to build an AI, right? So this is working. Awesome. We can also take a look at the second operation or the second bundle. And this is the input, and this is the opinion and informal, and this is opinion and informal, right? So this is working. Now, of course, obviously for the interesting part, what has the AI generated out of this? So if we toggle these, then this is the result. Just finished the feature to create customized travel plans based on the user's input. All right, I'm not so sure about this, to be honest. Yeah, it has taken these example posts too seriously or too literally. So this is something we need to take care of. The prompts or the sample posts are taken too literally. So not as sample posts, but more like templates, because in regards to the content, the one we've just taken a look at was about a automated calendar system, right? And if you take a look at this, then this still talks about travel assistance. And this is not what we wanted. All right, but good to know. So this is the first bundle or the first operation. Now, as for the second operation, which should deal with YouTube scraping, let's just take a look at this. This is the output. Now, this looks nice. I think we should talk about the potential of a YouTube scraper to find the most popular videos by search term, just my 2 cents. And also, you notice the writing style, right? How it formulates those sentences and how it phrases all this. Just my 2 cents, but with the vast content out there, in my view, and so on and so forth. So this is beautiful. This is exactly something that I would have written in my tone of voice and my tone of writing. Great, so we need to be aware of this first part, but the second part in regards to the sample posts, we need to be aware of the sample posts, but in general, this is working. So we just need to tweak it a little. Great. All right, and now for the final part in this route, we are obviously going to need the LinkedIn module. So look for LinkedIn, show more, and then create a user text post. Okay. Again, here I've already created a connection. If you didn't have yet, then create this and you will be prompted to enter your LinkedIn access or your LinkedIn credentials, and then you should have that connection. Now, as for the content, this is obviously the most important part. We would want what ChatGPT has just created, and this is here, the result. And then you will, and this is also the part where it's important, or where you can see that it's important that it only outputs what the final post is supposed to really look like, right? And not add anything like, of course, I am happy to help you with creating a post. This would be quite embarrassing, actually. All right, and then you have a couple of more options that you could use but not necessarily have to, like the media type. You know, there's this article function in LinkedIn, and of course the visibility. You can set this for yourself, but I believe in most cases you would want to make this public, and where you would want to output the feed, and this would also be the main feed probably. And that's already it. And then you hit OK. And you have now set up your first complete automation. All right, now let's start with the alternative route. And the first step would be to also set a condition under which this path is going to be chosen. And the condition would be just as before, where we have the total number of bundles, and then it would be equal to 0, right? Because there aren't any post ideas or personal ideas that the request has found. So just hit OK, and then this would be basically the opposite of this route. Now, since we will not or cannot use this table right now, the personal ideas table, we are also not able to use the references to the writing style profile table, right? So what we need to do is to refer to this table first, or get the information out of that writing style profile table first, and to be able to refer to this later when we use ChatGPT again in the prompt. And what we want to do there is to have a fixed profile that we use to summarize and to rephrase what's been happening in the news resources. So we are going to get a specific record this time, not search for records, all of the records. Then we use the same base again. And the table we're going to use now will be the writing style profile. And now we need the record ID of the profile we would want to use for the news sources, right? So either you know this one or you can search for it. And what we are going to use so that we catch the right one is to search for it. And then you get all the display fields that we already have in the table. See? So this is the ID, the post type, and so on. And what I want for this example is to write all these news posts in a, let's say, industry news informal way. And this has the ID of 4, as you can see. And this is also what I can use to get the actual ID. And when I hit OK, then you can see that this is the one that it has found, and then the record ID is this one. And this is what is going to be used later on. So the record of this specific row. Hit OK. And now we can use this writing style profile later on. All right, let's clean this up a little, auto align this. And now we're going to continue with the creation of our Google Doc. So remember, we will use a Google Doc where we will basically gather all the information from our RSS feeds into one document. So that way we also have a historical document that we can use and know what ChatGPT used to create all this. So for this, we are just going to use a Google Doc and just create a document. Again, create a connection. If you don't have one, just add it. And you are able to sign in with Google with your usual account data, and that's it. Then the name of the document will just be something like LinkedIn post. Let's call it raw data. And then let's make it dynamic so that we are able to differentiate between different documents in the future. So we are going to use a date and time form for this, a formula for this. I'm taking the format date. So this will format the time data that I enter, and I'm going to take the now into a specific form, and I'm using the ISO 8601. So which is basically like this. You have the year with 4 characters, the month and the day. And that should be enough. The content can just be empty, so just hit space because we are just going to create a new document for now. The drive, and then click here to choose your folder. We are just going to take the root directory, and that's already it. Hit OK and align this. Okay, next step, let's get all of our sources, because this is how we want to fill this document we've just created, right? So the next step, again, make an Airtable request, and this time it's going to be a search records again, with the same connection, the same base. But this time we're going to use the table of the sources, and it's going to list out all the fields that are available. And if you scroll through this, then you see that these match with what we have here. And we're just going to select all for now. You can leave the sort and the view empty again. Also, there's not a specific formula, and then you can limit this to the amount that you would want to receive. So you can see I have 11 entries. Let's just limit this to 15 or something. All right, and that's already it. Hit OK. And then we have our sources module. All right, now the next step. The next step will be to actually use the RSS feeds module. So type in RSS, and then we have retrieve RSS feed items, because you remember that we in this step have only received, or we have only pulled the source URLs we are going to hit and we are going to use to get our information, but we have not gotten those articles from those feeds and from those URLs just yet. This is what we're doing now. So go over the RSS feeds module, and the URL we're going to use, if we jump into our panel here again and collapse all of this, then this is from what we have just pulled out from the sources, right? And if you remember what I said in regards to this pulsating icon, then this is helpful now. And it's supposed to be this one, I believe. Yeah, this is this one, as you can see, because now we have the source URL. So this is referring to the field from this table, right? So this is this one. And this is the URL we're going to pull the data from. Now you can limit this to specific dates, and you can even do this dynamically, right? That you only want those from, I don't know, yesterday or the last week or something. And you can limit this even in regards to the to date and the maximum number of returned items. This is something I would definitely do, because I'm just going to hit 1 or to enter 1, because remember, we have actually quite some sources that we're using. So if we would pull like, I don't know, 10 or 15 items per URL, then this would get pretty extensive and expensive, yes, in regards to the tokens maybe or the performance, but this is not something that we need. So if we just catch maybe the latest article of one URL, then this would be sufficient. And of course, this depends on how many sources you have. So I'm going to use one, hit OK, and this is already it for this case. And we're done with this. All right, and this is a good time to do some testing, actually. So let's see if this whole flow works until now. Now, remember, we have this routing. We have tested this before, which worked pretty fine. And now we want to basically delete or remove our personal ideas just to see whether it's taking the alternative route. So let's change the statuses of our personal ideas. So let's say we have already published this and these ones are not yet ready to be processed. And I'm going to save this first. And actually, I'm going to unlink this for now, because in case we have not tweaked this yet, so that it doesn't publish anything that's not ready to be published in my feed. And this should be fine for now. I think we did not forget anything. Maybe something we could also do is to head over to Google. And as you can see, there aren't any documents right now. So this is a good thing. And jump back. And if I take a look at this again, this should look fine. All right, now let's run this and see what happens. So it did take the right route, which is a good thing. It did create the Google Docs, and we have gotten some feeds apparently. So let's go through this one by one. So first of all, let's take out the Google Docs, and this looks fine. And now you can see this is the hard-coded title we gave it, and then the dynamically created date. And this should be empty by now. Great. Okay. This is working. And the record we got, the industry news, exactly, because this is the writing style profile, right? So remember, we used this to set our profile, and we have pulled the one with ID 4, and we used the record ID for this, remember, right? So this is working as well. Awesome. We have seen that the Google Docs is working and that the doc has been created. Now search records, and here you can see we have our limit of 15. We have our table, and now you can see all of those URLs have been collected. Great. Okay, and now as for the feed, if this has already worked, but it does look fine. So we have our URL here, and this is what it pulled from this, and this is our first article. So this is the article it pulled from the first bundle, from the first URL, right? This is the next operation. This is the URL. And remember, we limited this to 1, right? So that there will only be 1 per URL, and it only output 1 bundle. And this is exactly what we wanted. Here we have the description and the summary, and you can see that, of course, the RSS feeds are structured differently according to the site. Same here, we have the description, which is pretty long, and we're going to clean this up in the next step. But great, all of this is working, fantastic. All right, now as for the next part, we are going to clean up this HTML that you have just seen, right? Because there's a lot of information that we don't need. So we're going to need another module, and we're going to use the text parser. And there you already have it, HTML to text. So this is a pretty simple module, but all of the information that we have received from those feeds is pretty bloated with all those HTML tags, right? And this is not what we want to put into the prompt we're going to send to ChatGPT later, because it's just unnecessary waste of tokens. Now, as for the value we're going to put in here, let's collapse all. We're obviously going to take what we have received from the RSS feeds, and we're going to take the description, because this is what's the most interesting. And here you can also see a preview, and it already starts with the HTML tag with the span, right? And this is going to be cleaned up by this module. Hit OK, and this is already it for this. All right, now the next part we're going to do is to fill our Google Doc, right, with all the information we have now received from the RSS feeds. And how this works is that we are going to use the Google Docs module again, and this time we are going to insert a paragraph into a document. So this will fill all of this document with all of the data we have received. Now we have our connection already. Now we're going to select a document by mapping. And which document are we going to use? Obviously the one we have created before. And to make sure, because now, right, we only have one document, this is obviously not a problem, but if we have more than this, then we need to make sure that it's going to choose the right one. So collapse all of this again, Google Doc, and create or take the document ID from the module where we have created the document. So this will be created dynamically, and we are sure that it's the right document. Then we are going to insert a paragraph by appending this to the body of the document. This is exactly what we want. And the text we're going to append is what we have just received, or just cleaned up actually, from this text parser, right? And there's only this one parameter that you can choose. And that's already it for this part. Hit OK. And auto align this. All right, now if we were to run it like this would basically work, right? Because in these RSS modules, there are integrated or built-in iterators. So all of these sources, and you can see this from judging by the number that it has run, that this will basically go through all of the URLs that we have set in here, right, in our sources, and catch the information from there, and then insert them into our Google Doc. Now, the problem arises if we were to add the ChatGPT module as the next step, because then every time this step would run through and ChatGPT would create for each of those URLs a new prompt and a new post. And this is not what we want, right? So we want to gather all of the information that it has received into this one document and then send this over as a whole document into ChatGPT, right? So what we need to add before we go on with the AI model is going to be an aggregator. So we have an array aggregator, and the source module we want to choose will be our Airtable, and this will be number 9. So this is this one, as you can see by the number, and we can leave the structure type. And then we're going to look for the text part, or not for the text part, for the RSS part, for the description, right? So that it actually runs through as many times as we have this description part, right? So we hit OK, and then you can see also, judging by the gray background, that it will first finish all of the iterations of this flow and then go on to the next module. And this is where we're going to use ChatGPT. All right, now we're almost done. So the next thing would be to get our content from the Google Docs. So get content of a document. And with the same connection, obviously, again, using not the drop down, but the mapping. Document ID will be the same as before. So you choose document ID from before, hit OK. And then we will retrieve all of the information within that specific document. All right, now one thing before we continue, to avoid confusion, is to rename these Airtable modules. So the next step is to finally add ChatGPT again, create a completion. We have our connection, we have our method, and the model we're going to use is 4o again. And again, we have our messages. We'll start with the system again, and the message content is almost the same as before. And as you can see, I have already prepared this, and we will go through this really quickly. So this is a slightly adjusted prompt, and we are going to use the writing style right now, right? And this is the post type from here. Tone. Now this is new. You are given raw RSS articles from the last couple of days, which will serve as news source and inspiration for topics to write about. These articles aren't filtered, so choose such information that focuses on actionable ideas for small to medium-sized enterprises on how to use AI in their businesses. And this is the target audience, basically, that I personally am trying to reach. But of course, you would adjust this to your own liking. The next message will again be the user prompt. And this time it's basically the same, just the sources are different. And then the content idea will now be the output of our Google Doc, right? So this is the text content from our Google Doc. And this is new as well, because this time we don't have any personal idea, but we are taking those information from the news sources. And this is it for this one. Now for this, we could use a little more tokens. So let's just use 4096, hit OK. All right, and now we should be set. All right, then let's finally test this. Now remember, we have tested this route. This was fine. And I've just cleaned up the Google Docs from our testing before, so that we know what's happening. And we will take a special look at this aggregation, and especially, of course, the output of ChatGPT. So let's run this. And before we do this, let's take a look at our personal ideas again. So these are still in draft or process, so there's not a single one that's ready for processing. So it should take this route. And let's see what happens. Creating the doc. Now gathering all that information, and you can see now why we use this aggregator, because it stops here, right? It doesn't continue until it fetches all of these articles. Now we have gotten this far, and it ran through without any errors. Let's take a look at the Google Doc. We have a new one. And if we open this, then you can see all of the information we have fetched from all those RSS feeds. And you can see that this is a quite extensive document, 27 pages. And this is already cleaned up, and you can see this, right? This is not HTML anymore. So if we had HTML, it would probably be 3 times the size. Great, so this is working, and we have tested this before. Let's take a look at the parser. Let's take a look at the output. Yes, this is what we have seen. And there's only one Google Doc, right? Run Google document, so it didn't create a new doc for each of these operations, which is exactly what we wanted as well. And here you can see this is the input. So we have those HTML tags, and this is the cleaned up version. Perfect. This is exactly what we wanted. Then it added a paragraph. Apparently, we have seen this. It ran until here. Awesome. So it aggregated all these bundles into one. And then it got the document. Yes, and it did get the right document, obviously right now, because there's only one. And now let's check what ChatGPT made out of this. And this looks really good. Now remember, we have our writing style. Awesome. Industry news and informal. And remember, this is the one we've said before, right? We took this ID writing style profile 4, which is industry news and informal. And it did consider this and adhere to that. Awesome. So we have our message here. We have all the information here as well. So our common phrases, vocabulary, latest cool heads up. For this one, latest cool heads up. Awesome. This worked as well. So this is the input, and then we have the output, and this is how it starts. Guess what? I just heard about a super cool AI innovation. And remember the system prompt we gave it, right? That I actually said it's supposed to be helpful and actionable for SMEs, small to medium-sized businesses or enterprises, right? It did use icons or emojis and hashtags as well. And it used the right model. This is fantastic. This is exactly what we wanted. And now this is just an extremely easy step to just add the LinkedIn module. And we have our auto-generated post. Remember, we had this LinkedIn module that we have already linked to the first output of ChatGPT in this route, and then obviously we would want to do the same. So just hit add module again, LinkedIn, create a user text post. Our connection and the content would this time be the result of this, and this is ID 15. So the result and anything else we've already talked about. Hit OK. Make sure, as you can see, this is ID 15, so this is the result we were talking about, and then it will publish this right away to LinkedIn. All right, guys, now this one went very smoothly, no hiccups whatsoever. Obviously, this needs a little tweaking, like we've seen with this one ChatGPT prompt that was outputting these weird results. But in general, this setup will enable you to never miss your posting schedule again and take advantage of the potential of LinkedIn. So from now on, it will literally take you seconds to create high quality, authentic posts on LinkedIn. And if there's not even that much time or you're out of ideas, then just let the AI do its thing, but without having to compromise for quality. If you like this video, hit like and subscribe, and hope to see you next time. Thanks for watching.